if there is one thing that I would love people to take away from this entire episode, it's that there is nothing to fix. Even your most uncomfy, shameful habits, even shame, it's nothing to fix. They are just things to be more deeply accepted.
I am very hard on myself, and I do feel like I get angry at my siblings because they have it so easy, and it's like you don't know what they've done to allow us to be here.
Hi guys, welcome back to Tea at 4. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Christy, and this is the podcast where we talk all things that should have stayed in the group chat.
So in January we explored our body literacy series, which was iconic and you should definitely check out if you haven't already. But within this series we kind of went into how to understand your body and therefore empower yourselves. But something I think we've neglected or not yet explored is how to understand your mind. And so today on the podcast we have a special guest. Again, we're gassed about it. We're joined by Megan.
Energy.
Yeah. Megs, would you mind introducing yourself for our audience?
Sure. So my name is Meg, and I am an emotional wellbeing strategist and mentor. And what that really means is I help people heal from their childhood emotional blueprint, the kind of patterns that we get stuck in, the emotions that we keep repeating, that kind of feel like they're not us anymore. We feel like we have outgrown them, but they still play out on our everyday, and we can now see the effects of them in our relationship and our confidence and our careers, and how you kind of move around that without making it something to fix.
So incredible. One of your most engaged posts on TikTok is how to feel your feelings instead of thinking of them. Could you explain that to our audience?
Yeah, that one popped off. It's still growing. And I think it's because we have never been taught how to feel our feelings.
Feel the feelings.
Yeah. It should be something that is common sense, because it is a literal part of your everyday experience. Every second you are feeling something, whether you are noticing it or not. So what happens is when we don't feel safe with the sensations in our body, we jump to our mind, and our mind loves to be in control. So if it recognizes a sensation in your body, like an emotion that you're feeling, that it doesn't know how to process, and it thinks it's unsafe, you shouldn't be feeling insecure, you shouldn't be feeling like an imposter, you shouldn't be feeling like you don't deserve this, you shouldn't be feeling shame or anger, especially anger is a huge one with women. Then what it does is it says, right, we now need to work out why I'm feeling this way, so that we can contextualize it and therefore make it less of a threat. The thing is you always get stuck there. You actually don't process the emotion. So you know why it's there. I bet you could tell me there's specific emotions you really struggle to feel. You know exactly where they come from.
Yeah.
But actually feeling and processing them, even with that knowledge, doesn't make it go away.
I feel that completely. I think one of the most jarring things I've experienced in the last couple of years is I thought I had quite good hold of my emotions, but I actually found out through therapy I have a really bad emotional management, in the sense that, like, yes, I can show I guess I can wear my heart on my sleeve and I can show my emotions, but as for dealing with them and processing them, not a Scooby. Like, I literally would look outward, I'd look at my relationships, my friendships, work as like a support, and then it would reflect right back at me and I would be just stuck. They would be stuck, and I'm just then feeling a lot of shame because I don't know how to process them, and then I'm always looking externally. And I think is that the case with a lot of people?
Oh, 1,000%. I think if you don't know how to feel something, there's such a thing of like oversharing is also a survival mechanism. It's like, whoa, I'm going to give you everything that I think you might judge me for, that terrifies me about myself. I'm going to give it all to you, so you know up front, this is who I am, this is the shit that you're dealing with, like, I'm a really shameful person, I'm really broken, please love me. And what you're doing is you're asking in return, like, I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve, aka I'm going to give you the emotions that I feel uncomfortable feeling, so that you can reflect back to me how I should process them. but other people can't process that for you.
That's me to a T. That is so disgustingly me.
But it's so common, and again, it's nothing to judge yourself. Like, we're not taught this stuff.
No.
So what are you meant to do with emotions that you don't know how to feel? How are you meant to manage your feelings?
Yeah. And I think our generation especially goes the opposite way. I feel like we then think, oh, I wish I was mysterious. Like, I always see on social media, like, I wish I was a mysterious kind of girl, aka someone that like didn't show their emotions.
Okay.
Or then the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is the oversharer. Like, why are we confusing that we have to go so far one way or the other?
Yeah, but they're two sides of the same coin often. Someone that is incredibly closed off emotionally, keeps a lot hidden, is still feeling uncomfortable in their emotions. And it's like it's a similar childhood pattern. It's one person has learnt, or both have learnt, that it's unsafe to feel certain things, and it's unsafe to vocalize those things. One of them is just taking that literally and saying, okay, now in my relationships, in order to get love and approval, I have to shut these all down and make sure no one knows that I'm struggling, because that equals a lack of approval, a lack of love. It equals being shamed by someone. The oversharer says, right, I'm going to repeat the pattern and try, and I spoke about this on my Instagram when I was debriefing maths yesterday.
Oh my God, yes.
So what we often tend to do, so I'm going to skip and come back to answer that question. What we often do is we try and succeed in childhood patterns that we've failed in. So for example, say, and I'm going to throw out my personal experience because it's just the easiest one. So for me, I had a father figure that did not have the capacity to give me the love that I needed. So therefore, the messaging at 7 was, I'm not enough. There's something wrong with me that makes this person think I can't give her the love that she's asking for. And obviously at 7, you have no idea. Like, you're doing the best with what you know how, but you are a child.
Yeah.
So what happens in later life is we seek out situations and people that feel the same to that uncompleted pattern. So the uncompleted pattern is, I did not get this person's approval. I did not feel good enough for them. And we do that in our adult relationships. We do that in our career. So we set ourselves up to repeat a pattern that we're never really going to succeed in because we're seeking out the same person in our childhood in adult that wasn't able to give us what we needed. So for example, in relationships, I sought out men that felt similar to what my dad represented, which was, I felt unseen by him, so I attracted partners where I felt unseen. I felt like I had to work for his approval, so I attracted men that I had to work for their approval. I got ghosted. I got, given breadcrumbs. So both people are now trying to complete that circuitry, right? That childhood pattern. The oversharer is now saying, I'm going to seek out the same person that I didn't get approval from, that told me I was too much.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and get these people to confirm that that's not true.
Yeah.
But you're attracting like this, you're oversharing with the same type of unsafe person, which is why it feels so familiar, which is why you do it with them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes severe sense to me.
Severe sense.
I think I'm the complete opposite. So where I had a father that was very, very present, I now attract people that need that affection.
Right.
So I feel like I pour a lot into other people's cup, and I neglect myself.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's the same as well with my siblings, because I'm the eldest. I pour into their cup more than I pour into my own. So I do feel like I give good advice, great advice. Sometimes I'm like, I should take it myself. Yeah. But because it's like I'm the oversharer, it's like oversharing, like the love, oversharing like advice and stuff. I forget about myself, or I don't allow myself to have moments, if that makes sense.
Total sense. That's the older sister syndrome. I'm the eldest as well. We're very good at giving advice, not so good at taking it and putting ourselves first.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So how do you deal with that?
So that's, there we go. So the elder child and listen, at the same time, I want to give context that this isn't the same for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But in general, the oldest child is the one that grows up the quickest. and you're the firstborn, right? So your parents are never done this before, so we're going to take as much help as we can. So when you have other siblings that come into the scenario, you end up learning that, right, my parents' emotional capacity or even physical capacity is this much, but actually I can notice my younger siblings need that much, and there's a mismatch there. So you kind of step in as the middleman to make sure everyone's needs are met. So you're making sure your parents aren't feeling overwhelmed by their parental responsibilities, and you're also making sure that your siblings feel loved.
Yeah.
And it's this really weird dynamic where as an adult you never really get out of that. You almost act like everyone in the world is within your family dynamic.
Yeah.
Which is like, well, no,
Yep.
they're not all your family.
Yeah.
A lot of them can be responsible for their own emotions, and actually you do people a disservice by managing that for them, because then they never learn the skill of being able to manage their own emotions. So you're actually not giving, you're actually taking.
Oh.
in a really
Sorry.
in a really blunt, love you.
Yeah.
But it's not as selfless as you think it is.
Okay. Interesting.
And sometimes that's the shift that makes, okay, maybe,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm doing it from a real, like, I'm doing this because I'm a really good person, I'm really
Yeah.
kind, I'm really loving, I care a lot about people, I'm not arguing that you don't. But actually when you put it through the frame of, but am I taking someone else's experience of learning how to develop that skill? Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it's not so selfless.
Mm.
And then that gives you that reframe of like, okay, I'm not a bad person by stepping
Yeah.
back.
That's true. Yeah.
And do you not feel it's exhausting?
Oh, it is. Now I leave them out.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I just leave, just like, yep, I see the conversation, I see what's going on, assess it, and be like, no, it's all right. It's kind of like, oh, no, it's all right, sit down.
Oh, okay.
You've got other things to worry about.
It's
So,
hard.
yeah.
I think it's one thing noticing and acknowledging these habits and, you know, things that you've got from your childhood and seeing it now. But like, as for tools, I feel like our 20s are so messy and confusing.
Yep.
Because like, if I'm not paying out money for therapy, or I'm not actively listening to podcasts every day, changing up my lifestyle, doing all these things, it can be so like, where do I start? So from your experience as a emotional wellbeing coach, what do you see people doing and where are they at in life?
I want to preface this question because I think, well, my answer, because I got started in personal development when I was 15. Someone actually said to me when I shared that, they were like, you know, you started personal development before you'd even stopped developing. And I was like,
Oh.
Oh my God, yeah, the
I
brain
need to
isn't
sit
fully
down.
formed.
Yeah, your brain stops developing at 25, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. Much
You're
later than
done, babe.
I'm done. No. Yeah.
But yeah, my mum was super into it, and by this stage she had been diagnosed with cancer. So she got diagnosed when I was 14, and I'd already lost my biological dad. So my biological dad died when I was 3 months old. So I have no memories of him, but that's why I had such a difficult relationship with my stepdad at age 7. So I kind of found out that he wasn't my real dad by accident the one day, and I literally don't have memories of my childhood before that day, which is insane how your brain like shuts down certain parts of your childhood to literally protect you. And so at 7 I was shipped off to therapy. No one else in my family. I was the child. I was shipped off to therapy. And listen, again, I understand people can only do what they, you know, the best that they can with what they know how. And my parents just didn't have the capacity for different reasons. So I've been in therapy since I was 7.
Wow.
I've been doing personal development work since I was 14, 15. So I turned 30 this year. So like half of my life. And there is a real danger with too much therapy, too much personal development work, because what it can do is convince you that there is something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And if your brain thinks, right, I've got a problem to solve, and in solving this problem, I feel safer, aka the problem is me, it will never let you get rid of the problem.
Yeah, I feel that.
Right? Because then it's got to admit that, okay, now we're safe. And it's like, well, it never wants to do that. It'll
Yeah.
just continually look for another problem to solve, because it's the pattern of solving that makes your brain feel safe,
Right.
not actual safety. So the main narrative that you tend to subconsciously take in personal development, which is where I got really, really stuck. I was so good. I had all this self-awareness. I knew exactly where all my, trauma came from, my childhood patterns, all these kind of things, but it didn't make me feel any better. I was just more aware of it because I was still thinking that these things were things to fix about me. And so if there is one thing that I would love people to take away from this entire episode, it's that there is nothing to fix. Even your most uncomfy, shameful habits, even shame, it's nothing to fix. They are just things to be more deeply accepted. Because the safety that you're looking for actually is the safety to be yourself.
Something I feel like I have a bit of an identity crisis when it comes to that, because in my personal life, I very much have that mindset of like it's not that big of a deal. Like, just go with the flow. What's meant to be will be. But then something I struggle with is at work, I think you have to be quite assertive and quite hard to be respected, especially if you're in like a management position, or just generally if you want to work your way up. I think you need to have a more harder exterior. I don't know. And then I think in my head I'm doing that 9 to 5 days a week, and then on the other bit of my time I'm softer and I'm more sensitive. Like, how do we find the balance between wanting to, be this person at work that everyone respects, but then also lean into that more vulnerable side in my free time?
I mean, that is the ultimate question, isn't it? I don't know if I have a perfect answer. I don't think there is a perfect answer to that. I think it's very individual, very personal. I think you just have to be really clear what you're sacrificing whilst you're at work. That when you get into your personal space and your safe space, if there is something that you've pushed down during the day that felt triggering, that felt like, oh, I felt really uncomfy there, that you give yourself the space in the evening and your personal time, like it's a priority, to kind of process and just say, hey, like, spend a couple minutes being like, what did I need in that moment that I couldn't give myself at that time, but I can now, because I'm at home or I'm in bed. It doesn't have to be anything major. It's just, I think the most powerful thing for us to do as individuals is just recognize there's like a mini human within each of us. Some people call it your inner child, that is really seeking you as the parent, as the adult version, just some recognition, some validation, some support. It's the time that you maybe didn't receive as a kid, or the approval you didn't receive as a kid, or the safety, or that it's okay. You're allowed to feel how you feel. Like, tell me, I've got all the space and time in the world for you, type of thing. So it's just like micro shifts in how yes, you can perform. Listen, there's time and places where we do just have to put on a front. We have to put on a mask. We have to perform. But I think it's just still recognizing you're in a performance.
Yeah.
And that I'm going to take a mental note of this for later, that when I'm in my safe space, I'm just going to give myself a couple of minutes or however long, or maybe I'm going to do something that I know is going to make me feel a little better and give myself the space to process this thing when it's safe.
Love that. Interesting you say about performing, because I think something we spoke about is confrontation, and it does not come naturally to me. Let's just say that.
Neither.
No. But it's like everything before a simple confrontation at work. Not like a fight, but like even bringing up something, asking for something I need. Like, I have to write it all down before. I'm like pumped with adrenaline. I'm having to walk around to kind of exude that panic, or I just don't ask at all because I'm scared of rejection. Like, how do I kind of embody the, because I think our generation especially is so obsessed with like fake it till you make it. I get that sentiment, but how do I truly embody this person that is comfortable with confrontation, especially as a woman? Like, do you see that in your work, and how do you kind of deal with those things?
Oh, definitely. And like, from personal experience, confrontation is still something that I fucking hate. So the way in which you kind of learn to navigate this is, again, you make it super comfortable that it's uncomfy. It's not a big deal that I really struggle with confrontation. Like, where am I putting myself on such a pedestal that I have no space to be a human? Like, of course, confrontation, if your childhood looked like, you know, XYZ, of course confrontation is going to look and feel really uncomfy and unsafe. You know, I grew up with a mum who was so loving, so giving, terrified of confrontation, and would take it personally if she had confrontation, you know, even if it was a disagreement. So the messaging from her was, take the high road. Never let anyone know that you're upset or you're pissed off or whatever. Take the high road. And as much as I can sometimes, like, there is definitely a time and space for taking the high road, but also there is time and space for actually standing up for myself and saying, listen, that made me feel really uncomfortable. And I don't want to be put in that position again. So it's like a balance. But I think the first thing is, it's like recognizing, why am I making it such a big deal that I feel uncomfortable about this? Like, that's not going to help me feel any better. Right. So I might as well just say, shit, I really struggle with confrontation. This is going to feel uncomfy up until the point that it feels comfortable. Like, that's, you can't jump from uncomfortable to comfortable without going and doing it uncomfortably. So it's just, again, it's watching that mental narrative of, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be feeling more confident in this scenario, and shift it onto, you know what, I'm really proud of myself that I'm going to do this, even feeling like I'm going to shit myself.
Yeah.
You know?
And like you say there about should, I think self-talk is quite important, as you say, in that moment, because you could be saying, I should be bringing this thing up at work. I really should be. Maybe shift it to also, I want to be doing this for myself. And like, this is something that's going to benefit me and that I'll be proud of, rather than thinking in that mindset of like, I should, because that sounds a lot scarier than,
why are you not doing it? It's like, it's like you're stopping yourself from doing something that you actually need to do. So I think the words that you choose, the won't, can, the do, to like the should, to do. So
should is shame. I'm going to shame myself into doing something. Like, does that ever work? Has that ever worked for you?
And I always do it in a really emotional way. And
I do it, but I think I dress it up as it's just like, it's laughter. It's just a bit of banter. So it's weird. I think that's my coping.
Right, as in confrontation for you. So you'll address it in like a humorous
way, so that it's not too serious.
Amazing.
When it's serious, it's like, I'm out the window, because I'll be like, so I have to find the fun in it and kind of like address it in that way.
Is that doing a disservice to ourselves as well, though, by if that seemed like I don't take it seriously?
I think whatever, again, it's like, don't expect yourself to run before you can walk. If humor right now is a safety mechanism you're using to even have these conversations, which in turn build your confidence, build your self-esteem, build your evidence that it is safe to have confrontation, then by all means do it, and do it until something else replaces that. But just be aware, like, this is where I'm at now, and actually maybe the next stage of what I want is to not have to use humor. Then that's going to look slightly different. But again, it's just this, it is safe to feel like you struggle with things in life. Like, I am so bored of watching people on social media never admit that they struggle. Never admit that they're going to record something, or they're going to a huge meeting, or they're speaking on stage, or they're running a company, and they don't have human days where they don't. Because I think if we normalize the fact that you will never have the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect friendships that completely eradicate your insecurity. Like, that does not exist. So we need to stop chasing that. And then we need to stop perpetuating the narrative that is a possibility. Like, it is boring now, because what we're doing is we're disempowering society, we're disempowering each other by not sharing these things. And then I think we would see a real shift in how we approach personal development.
I saw this viral clip on TikTok at the weekend, and it was Stephen Bartlett basically saying that he, in his interview process for bringing people into his workplace, he has to approach it in a way where he asks how much their capacity is for putting work first. He thinks basically that Gen Z are too soft compared to his dad's generation that knew the importance of work and doing something for someone else to keep the cogs turning before, you know, your evenings or your weekends. And I think this personally is quite toxic to me, with kind of removing any personality for yourself or time for yourself and being soft. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think it's that mindset that you have to be on all the time for an employer that leads to burnout. And that's something that probably wasn't around in his dad's generation. How do we kind of, stay true to that soft side of things with people telling us that we have to be hard and we have to be robust and doing things for other people all the time to, you know, stay afloat, have a good income? Don't know, how do you handle those conversations?
I think I first want to mention that everyone's opinion comes through a very personal lens. Like, we are selfish by nature. We view the world, we experience the world through main character, right? So I think Stephen is a first generation immigrant. I'm sure his parents moved from... They did, didn't they? So of course, if you've grown up in a dynamic, and obviously I don't want to speak for someone else, but in general, when there are such polarizing opinions like that of you're too soft or you need to be this, that and the other, I think you have to remember that's coming from someone's personal experience. They're playing that through their own childhood dynamics, which is fine. We all do that naturally. Do I think it's true? No. Do I think it's advice that's applicable to everyone? No. We all experience different things. We all want different things out of life, ultimately. You know, if you are very career driven and a lot of your fulfillment comes from your career, of course you're going to put that on as a priority. And when we talked about what your career requires of you, requires often a lot of performing. So an opinion based on I prioritize my career a lot is always going to say I perform a lot, is what he's actually saying. Everyone has an opinion. Like, we all have assholes. You know, it doesn't mean yours is right. It doesn't mean yours is the only one. And I think the too soft argument always comes from an opinion where, or an experience where performance has been more valued than vulnerability. And I think we're just a generation now where we have reached the capacity generationally of what we are willing to sweep under the rug. Because if you think about the amount of trauma that we're holding from our parents and our parents holding from their parents and down the line. And I think this argument of, oh, Gen Z, you're too soft. No, I just think we have gotten to the point where we actually are about to explode as human beings. And we do need to talk about this so that we can have more fulfilling careers, so that we are experiencing less burnout, so that we are not sacrificing personal time for the sake of how much money I'm bringing in. And it's just a conversational switch. I think our values as a society are changing, and I think that's for a good thing. And I think potentially the conversation will shift again, maybe in a couple 100 years, where we have learned, right, we experience burnout less because we talk about our emotions more. We're a more emotionally vulnerable society. And then it'll probably switch to, right, how do we hide less about ourselves in our career? How do we find more of a balance with a career that's fulfilling and not just a career that ticks a societal value? So I think it's just conversations that will swing round and roundabouts. Like, I think it has no basis.
On this note, actually, one of my biggest issues is the pursuit of perfection. And I think especially in social media, which is my job for one thing, but in terms of my personal creativity, I think what holds me back the most is I have to put this perfected version of myself out there. Otherwise, someone's going to see that, think something small, less of me. And that's not what I stand for. That's not what I want to put out to the world. And I feel like, I think there's a quote, I remember Casey and I sat saying something that, perfection is the enemy of good enough. And I feel like if I constantly stay in this mode of like, I can't put anything out there until I'm 100%, 1,000% happy with it, or I'm not going to put this out until there's a perfect time of day that I should post this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep prolonging that thing. But I think also what's quite toxic is we live in a society where we're obsessed with goals and resolutions and always waiting. Like, I'll see something come up every 4 TikToks that's like, in 6 weeks, if you start working on yourself, you'll feel it. In 12 weeks, other people will notice it. And it's like we're just always on this like length of time until you get to the perfect weight, until you're the perfect amount of confidence. Like what? Like how do we stop going in these patterns of just waiting and waiting?
Well, perfectionism, if we take it back to that need to be perfect, that's a protective mechanism for either rejection, either, it tends to be rejection, feelings of not being good enough. So you've almost got to ask yourself, what is it about producing or being myself that really terrifies me? Like, what is it about producing a good enough piece of work that terrifies you? Like, what is the feeling you're trying to avoid feeling by getting it perfect?
I don't think it's not getting it perfect. It's about getting it not perfect, and then being angry at myself that I've not gone over something so many times that.
But the anger is masking a like level of showing yourself that you're not happy with. So what is it in showing yourself less than perfect that terrifies you? What are you afraid you'll feel?
100% is an acceptance thing, and I think I want to be deemed as someone that looks competent. And
why?
Oh, babe, she getting deep.
Oh God, I've been out of therapy for months. This is not new. Why? The acceptance is to be loved, to be seen, and when I'm being seen, I feel like I don't do it so often. So there's even more pressure on like making that good.
Yeah. So then that's something that you will never ever receive enough of from someone else.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Never.
Yeah.
So in those moments, and like I so relate, like that's exactly like I have a huge fear of being seen, which I know sounds ridiculous because I do this for work, I speak, I have to be seen. But you almost have to learn, right, what is it that I'm terrified of feeling? That's the thing that inner child within me is looking for validation that she's safe to feel. She's safe to feel like she's not enough. She's safe to feel rejected.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, what really is rejection? Your people are your people. They're either going to love you or hate you. There's nothing in between. And people in between can also go in the other category of, like, they're not your people.
Yeah.
If people are going to judge you for subpar work, not perfect work, not your people.
Yeah.
If someone is going to think that you're too much, too loud, too whatever, not your person. Yeah. Not your audience.
Yeah.
So who are you performing for? Are you performing for the person that you will never feel accepted by? Therefore, you were just you're setting yourself up to fail. Or are you just embracing the fact that the people that are meant to be in my life, the opportunities that are meant to be in my life, will always be in my life when I show up as myself.
Yeah, true.
And when I make it really safe to be me. And those people can only find you when you're not hiding behind that mask of perfection, which sometimes literally looks like physically hiding.
Yeah.
Not posting the thing. So you've just got to be like brutally honest. What is it I'm trying to avoid feeling and in turn shaming myself about? And then playing out these patterns that are really just setting me up for failure.
Yeah.
Word.
Word. Yeah.
I think it's also giving yourself grace, because you feel like when you start speaking to yourself, you're just digging a deeper hole, and once you're down deep in that hole, how the hell are you climbing back up?
Oh my God, I'm queen of ruminating. So once I get that negative thought in my head, it's very hard for something to just quickly swipe in. And I think, I don't know. I think the problem is, like you say, is just pushing the feelings down and not actually feeling them.
But it's also making that a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Again, the language. I have a real problem with ruminating.
Yeah.
You're shaming yourself for that. Do you think that helps? Do you think that's going to help you cut that cycle of ruminating? No, it's going to throw you deeper into it, because it's like, right, I need to solve this. I need to fix this. I need to do the impossible.
Yeah.
It's like shifting the narrative of, I'm ruminating again. I've done this before. I know it'll eventually stop. It's not a big deal. Am I the only person on the entire world that ruminates? No.
Yeah.
You see the difference in like, this isn't something to fix. It is something to accept, give space about, make it not a big deal.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a practice, but it's like even the layer of, yeah, but I'm doing this wrong. It's safe to feel like I'm doing this wrong. Yeah, but I don't want to be doing this. It's safe to feel like I shouldn't be doing this.
I love that.
It's just like that continual, if you're going to speak to yourself, you might as well just make everything that you're saying
Well, I've learned a new word
something
today.
safe.
What?
The ruminating.
Oh, is this a new one?
I was like, what? I was like,
Are you quickly
ruminating?
Googling
I was
it?
like, oh, okay.
That's
Love that
jokes.
for me.
Love that.
I wanted to ask something that kind of aligns with the whole confrontation thing. All of that jazz is confidence. And I saw something on your page about the 51% confidence rule. Yes. Could you explain that?
You only need a window of confidence. So if you think about it like the seesaw, you just need it to tip from 50-50 or 30-70 to then maybe 50-50 to then 51-49. I'm trying to do the maths as I'm saying this. Just 1% in the direction of confidence. And it'll feel like a tiny window. It'll feel like the fear will be there, the self-doubt will be there, but there's also this like tiny voice that's saying, you know what, I might just have this. And it feels like a might. I might be able to do this. That's what you're looking for. Jump. That's your 51. That's your 1%. It's technically a 1% window.
Yeah.
And the rest kind of, you then build evidence. I can do really scary things, even when I don't feel 100% confident. And I think that is just the most incredible gift you can give yourself, because it no longer means you put distance between where you are, who you are being, and what you want to create in your life.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with my relationship. I've been with my boyfriend now it's coming up to 7 years already. And before that, I just had a string of very unhealthy, I wouldn't even call them, they literally weren't even relationships.
Right.
They were situationships. I was ghosted constantly. I only ever got ghosted. I was like, what is this? And even with him, I had to do the work to really recognize maybe this might work, and I can make it safe to feel really insecure in this relationship. I can feel safe to feel like maybe he's going to leave again or he's going to ghost me. But it was this like 1%, maybe I can have this.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to like take it one day at a time and give myself and look back and take that as evidence that like, okay, maybe this thing is working, and, you know, maybe I can deserve these things.
Yeah.
You're just looking for that tiny window.
I feel that so much, because I feel like the moments where I've kind of just let life be life and not worry, put so much pressure on this. I'm going to do really well at work. This video is going to be perfect, or my relationship or my dating life is like, it's not consuming me, but it'll be nice if it does work out. That's when it's flourished. And I think it's because I've not put so much pressure on myself and other people to, you know, be perfect and be everything I could have ever imagined. It's that 1% that I've just let it be, and it's worked out.
But it's also that like the ability, what you've done in those moments, probably on a subconscious level without even realizing, is you're taking back, instead of projecting, I need the validation, I need the approval from these things working out, you're learning to self-source by even just saying, I don't need these things to work out. I'm going to be safe regardless. I'm going to have my back regardless. I'm going to get through this regardless. It's like that, it's these micro shifts in confidence and how you talk to yourself and how safe you make it to simply be you.
Yeah.
Love that. I think something you just brought up then about love could be something that'd be quite good to touch on, because I think the case for a lot of people, especially in their 20s, we don't want to even go into the dating pool. We don't want to invest our time in dating, because so easily people are irresponsible in taking your feelings and hurting them and ghosting you and gaslighting you. And I think how does that complete fear of rejection and putting the onus on someone else, how do we get past that and just try and make ourselves open, but also protect ourselves and self-source? How do you do it?
I know, this is the thing. See, like, there's such a gentle, like, the way you talk about personal development, you have to be so careful about how you talk about these topics, because again, it's not something to get right. It's really hard. It's difficult when you've grown up and you've had really shitty experiences in dating, and you're already kind of, you feel like you've started off in the dating world on the back foot because you didn't have certain needs met in your childhood, or whatever that case may be. I mean, 9 times out of 10 it all expects childhood. And I keep thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about that quote, which I feel like has gone semi-viral again, which is, you accept the love you think you deserve. And I bring that up because I think in dating, we constantly externalize how we're feeling. And of course, we meet shitty people when we're dating, right? We meet people that aren't ready to give us what we need them to give us. They don't have the capacity for whatever reason. And instead of thinking of dating as, I've got to get something from someone else, it's almost like you need to shift that into, what am I seeking from someone else that I don't think I can give to myself?
Right.
For example, that safety in rejection, or that safety in, it's safe to simply be me. I don't have to be this perfect human. Whoever's going to love me is going to love all parts of me. It's safe to feel rejected. It's safe to feel not good enough for this person, because it's really not personal. It's, we're all playing out, we're all just like big kids trying to figure it out, and we've had unmet needs in our childhood, and dating is just one of the biggest places that plays out, because we're interacting with another person. So it's going to immediately trigger old patterns that we're used to playing in. They're like, you know, for example, with my boyfriend, my pattern was definitely, I felt very unseen by my dad. And so it played out when I constantly got ghosted. What is that? I'm not seen. They don't recognize or value me. And when I met him, I had to do a lot of internalizing what I was trying to put onto him. So the safety, the validation, the approval, and say, actually, this is like a younger version of me, terrified of feeling like she's going to be unseen again. Like, that's on me.
Yeah.
You know, that's not someone else's issue. And I think when you can kind of just approach dating like, we're all just big kids trying to work this really difficult and scary thing out, you kind of take the pressure out of things. Like, it's not personal. Dating first and foremost is about your relationship to self.
But how do you not take it personal when things like dating apps are literally your personal profile?
Yes.
It's 4 of my best photos. It's a bio which sums me up in 4 sentences. And someone decides to swipe left or right based on what they think of me personally. So how do you kind of separate yourself from putting yourself out there and then also retaining that sense of worth?
Yes. So I think first of all, you make it not a big deal that this is, I feel personal about this, about dating. I take it personally. Make that safe. Cool. Do you think you're the only person in the world that takes dating personally? No. Like, it's not a big deal, right? It's safe to feel. This is scary. Then the second thing is rejection, when you really think about it, doesn't actually exist. It's not actually true, because it just means they weren't the right person for you. It wasn't the right career for you. Like, hindsight is a beautiful thing. And I think you have to look back and remember all the times you got rejected by things and people that clearly just didn't have the capacity to see you, wasn't for you, wasn't meant to be. You're either colorblind and you have like, you can only see the color red or you can only see the color blue. Right? Your people will be the people that, let's say you're red. They can only see you if they're the type of person that wears the red tinted glasses. If they're wearing the blue tinted glasses, they can't pick you up. You're like a gray. You're not even existing. Right? It's like, there is that match, and I mean that in all sense of the word, like friendships. I mean, we don't talk about friendships enough. That's also a really difficult space. I just don't believe you can ever lose out on a person or a thing that is actually meant for you. Like, in some cases, rejection really is protection. It's like, listen, this person clearly doesn't have the capacity to love you the way that you need, to see you the way that you need to be seen. That career opportunity definitely didn't it wasn't, you might have thought it was the thing for you, but actually if you knew what really it entailed, you'd hate it. I think you've got to trust that if you ever feel rejection, it's not because you're not good enough. It really is this thing of, it's not meant for you.
I feel that.
Cut it, move on.
And I think it's fine, especially when it comes to friendships, like friendships have seasons. So you'll be a friend with somebody for a certain period of time, and then it's okay for that friendship to fizzle out. It's accepting the fact that we've gone through what we've gone through, and now we're like, let's say they've taken this from you, I've taken that from that person, and now we can go our separate. It doesn't mean that it's bad blood there, but it's just the growth of like, okay, accepting that we can let go of each other.
I get that, but I think there's a fear around that kind of just dropping friends, especially in your 20s, because I feel like the people that are around you later on in life feel a little bit more sacred than going to a party when you're 15 and meeting a whole new group of people. And I think especially in terms of growing up and having more emotional management, what can be hard in your 20s is outgrowing people that haven't, and they're kind of stuck in those repetitive behaviors. And I guess, how do you retain that sense of compassion? And what if I don't want to just drop a friend that I've been friends with for so long, and I've outgrown them, and they're going through things, and that might be a season, but ultimately I do love them, but we're just not vibing at the moment. So how do you stay patient?
I mean, it's tough. Like, I've had family members, I've had to cut out family members that maybe outgrown is, I guess you can outgrow family members, but it happens with friendships as well. And it is, listen, it's difficult, number one. And again, I'm going to sound like a stuck record. It's safe for that to feel really difficult and uncomfy. But I think you need to recognize, like, you've done something for you first, right? You didn't grow. Maybe it started out like you were doing it for someone else, but ultimately you've invested in yourself because you actually do care enough about yourself to want to improve things. And I think the pain comes from, because the friendship will naturally fizzle. It'll fizzle out just like in the dating world. And that tends to be what happens. Your schedules stop aligning with each other. Your idea of hanging out changes. Maybe they move across the world. And now suddenly, like, I had this with my best friend from Cape Town. She moved to Dubai. And it felt like a long-term, like a long-distance relationship. And at one point, we completely, like, the friendship kind of completely fizzled out. And that was really painful because, like you said, like, I had been through, I lost my mum with her, she was in my life at a huge moment in my journey. She was such a sacred friendship. But I think what we tend to do is we, like, attach, we almost think, it's almost like a grieving process you have to kind of accept comes up, that not everyone is going to stay in your life. And like you said, every friendship kind of has seasons. But I'm trying to think how to answer your question of, did you ask how to make that?
I guess just like in terms of not completely cutting them off, but staying patient, or maybe communicating, I'm in a different place to you right now. I want to be your friend, but I can't fucking deal with you doing the same things over and over, or going back to that same person over and over.
Yeah.
How do you,
It's difficult. And I think in a way you can use them as an added layer of, like, what triggers me about them staying where they are. Like, am I actually projecting some shame from a past version of myself that sees myself in that pattern and is actually judging myself through her? So again, you have to be brutally honest. Like, are you judging her, or are you judging a past version of yourself you see in her that you wish you'd sorted out your shit earlier? So that's like a shaming technique.
Damn.
And then it's realizing you aren't better than someone because you've done the work. And I have to be brutally honest. Like, there was a stage with a particular family member where I really had to check my ego and actually say, listen, they're just not ready to do the work on themselves. It doesn't make me better than them because I've chosen to do it. We've just had different circumstances and I felt like I needed it. So it's like having that same grace. It's using every experience in your life as a tool for having deeper self-acceptance for where you are. Because I think the more like comfy you are with what your journey's been, where you are now, the less triggering someone else is who's still playing out patterns that maybe you can relate to is. It's kind of like they'll find their way.
Yeah. That's really profound. I like that. Yeah.
Does that feel practical?
I think so, for sure. And I think in your 20s we put so much pressure on ourselves, like you say, to be like a final perfected piece. And like, even if I consider myself brutal but like better, in a better place than like a friend is now, doesn't mean there's going to be something that comes around again where I'm a bit of a messy version of myself and they're a bit better than me. Yeah, very interesting. And I think, just to circle back to the dating thing, a big thing at this age, I think between the 25s to 30 point, is setbacks. Like constantly having things happen, something puts you off dating for a long period of time, then you get back round to it, and people are just going through that constant cycle. How do you stay true to yourself, confident, strong with all these things that are pushing you back?
Do you want to give me an example?
An example. It's hard. It's been a long time since I've... Like, for example, I would go onto dating apps. I'd be in the back of an Uber drunk. Like, that'd be the only time that I'd feel like I could communicate with men.
Yeah.
Which fucking says it all, to be honest. I wasn't serious about investing my time into dating seriously, or being taken seriously, probably. And then I'd go on a date with someone, I'd have a negative experience, it would fizzle out, it would be quite... To be fair, me even associating the word negative is probably one of the biggest things, because it's probably just didn't have the capacity, not the right person.
Yeah.
So important to reframe, right, doing my own therapy here. But then it would just then go past another year, and I would just tell myself I'm protecting my own peace a little bit too much. I'm waking up with a dry phone, and then it would happen again. I'd think, oh, I need some attention. I'd go back on the dating apps, I'd start dating again, have a negative experience, and then it would take even longer to bounce back. And I'm just stuck in this period when people would ask me, like, are you dating at the moment? Are you looking for someone? And I'll be like, no, do you know what? I'm just not bothering. I can't go through that period where you can't sleep at night because you're worrying that someone's taking advantage of you or your feelings, or they're just going to, you know, fuck you in the end. Yeah. And then you just stay in this constant state of, I'm just going to look after myself and I'm not going to date. And if someone's meant to be for me, they'll come to me. But in that same sense, I'm not putting myself out there.
All roads lead back to yourself. So I feel like in those moments where you are really seeking something that you can give to yourself from someone else, you'll always meet a dead end. You'll always be like, you're not going to get it from this person, so you might as well stop trying. And you can do that for years. Listen, I did this for years and years, because it felt safer then. I think I'd like cut myself out of the own race. I was like, I can't give myself validation. I can't give myself approval or the permission slip that I'm looking for. So naturally you look for, right, I'm going to find it in a partner. I'm going to find it in a relationship or whatever. I think it really does come back to that self-sourcing conversation again. It's what are you seeking from someone else that you could, if you put the same amount of effort and time in that you do with other people, getting it from someone else, you did from giving it to yourself, you'd have such a different result. I think it's just easier. Again, it's that childhood pattern that you're playing out. It's like someone in your childhood didn't give you something that you needed. And that's okay to admit. Like, a lot of people come out of their childhood not getting something, because our parents aren't perfect. They're just grown-up kids like we are. So it's just learning, is this really a confidence knock, or am I being shown that the way in which I'm seeking confidence isn't working?
I mean, I'm not in that anymore. I mean, the love came when it wasn't knocking, when I wasn't looking for it.
Same.
And in a weird way, I was in a time of my life where I was so looking for anything but love, and I was loving myself by doing things and going out traveling. And then literally on the Monday, I'm having a conversation with my therapist about how to have basic conversations with people when you're out. I literally had a conversation about eye contact, and she was like, well, you know, when your friends are getting approached by people when you're out, and what's your demeanor like? And I'm sat in the corner, I'm closed off. And she's like, why don't you just try eye contact and opening yourself up and just seeing what comes? Don't go into that scenario, that environment, looking for something, like it's going to attack people for conversation. And it was that one person I laid literally eye contact on, and then the universe kind of rewards you.
Well, that codependent energy is heavy. People feel it from a mile away, which is why I think we tend to, when we are in that codependent dynamic, we will attract people that are completely like adverse to showing you any form, because you're the only safe, like they're the ones that can be like, I can handle this heavy energy because I'm going to give her nothing. Right? So those tend to be the people that's where you get the runner and the chaser. So it's recognizing how much, like if you literally think of your like emotional state as this thing people can literally see, it's like you can feel a codependent energy from a mile away. It's heavy, it's really taking, it's like you've got to give and give and give someone. So you're never going to find that healthy dynamic that needs you to meet yourself in a healthy place, because they're not willing to overgive. They're willing to, you know, come back and forth, and when someone's feeling a little low, but they're meeting you at the halfway point. They can sense you have the capacity to give yourself what you need, so that they know you're also capable of giving them what they need. Because ironically, even the overgivers, it tends to be, and people pleasers, it tends to be a very selfish giving. You're not actually necessarily have the capacity to give someone something else and all your energy, even though it feels like that is literally what you're doing. You're giving something in return for something straight away. So it's like an empty give.
I'm a people pleaser, are you?
Not anymore. It used to be.
Oh, really? What changed?
She's changed. I think it's from past relationships, like doing way too much and not doing way too much and accepting if I don't get anything back in return, it's normal, it's fine. And then after a while I was like, wait, hold on. So you're telling me, going back to Mr. Tour Guide, you can take somebody on holiday for their birthday, whatever, but when yours comes, nothing happens and you're okay with that? No. You've got to like literally sit down and kind of like reflect and look back at the situation and see where you're doing yourself a disservice. That's what I've basically taught myself. But also it's one of them ones where it's like, it's okay not to do everything for other people. It's actually okay to say no. I always be like, I'll do it for you, but I'm overworking myself and not like feeding or pouring into my own cup, but I'm pouring into others. So it's like, if your cup's not getting full, how the hell am I meant to get the energy?
Are you overthinking and thinking the outcome of the next scenario where you do give that selflessness of yourself, it's going to end up in the same way?
No.
So you're not stopping yourself from going into opportunities because you're scared that someone's going to do that again?
I don't know. Wow.
Sorry, I'm role playing as the emotional.
Thanks, Lauren. Wow, I don't know.
It's often a case by case example.
I don't know.
You know, you can get something right, not right.
Yeah.
You can create a really safe space for yourself one time, and then you just learn like how to repeat that. You won't always get it right. There will be scenarios where it's potentially more triggering to not overgive. But I think what happens is the pain, sometimes it just requires us to get into a really shit place. And the pain outweighs the fear of the risk we need to take to get what we want. And when that kind of goes off balance, that's when we tend to change our behavior. And like, that's okay too. It's still a road to where you want to get.
I feel that I only asked that and bring it up is because I feel like boundaries was a big thing for me. And once I got them, it was almost like the boundaries stopped me from wanting to feel anything other than like my neutral happy Lauren state. And like I didn't want to let myself even feel joy, feel sadness. Like I know it sounds crazy, but it bled into like not wanting to open a text because I was scared of what might come on the other side of it, even if it was a positive thing or a negative thing. It was like my body physically didn't want me to, and my mind didn't want me to see what was on the other side, just in case it was anything than my normal like neutral that I know and I was safe in. So sometimes your boundaries can be so in place that you don't let yourself, see what could be.
Well, there's different ways of like feeling safe in life. You can set you probably just set a slightly bigger box for yourself, but you're still in this box where it's like anything outside of that remit is not safe. So for example, joy can so easily come into that. Receiving things that you really want can fall outside of that safety box.
Yeah.
Boundaries are just a continual conversation of how do I make more and more situations feel safe for my entire self.
Yeah.
How can I self-service more than I service others? Because ironically, the more you fill up your own cup, the more you can give to someone else, right? It's just a continual practice. There is no perfect way of doing this. I think, again, that is like, no one is doing this wrong.
Yeah.
You can't get this work wrong because it just leads you to, right, well, that's a lesson. Okay, feedback, I'll take that on board. As long as you can take it on board, that's the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot do life perfectly, ever.
So we asked our audience some questions around dealing with emotions, and we got some very interesting responses.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's only right that we bring them here and chat about them. How about that?
Oh,
Let's hash them out.
Let's hash them out. Yes. Okay. So one of the first ones was, we asked the audience, what holds you back the most in life? And the answers we got was: 1, I go through phases, but anxiety; fear of failure; what people think about me; people's expectations; and trying to juggle it all. Is there any you guys, relate or link?
100% expectations.
Yep.
I ironically think people think a lot about me, which is so far from the truth. And that's something I've had to kind of peel away from myself, is that I could be going over and overthinking a conversation till the late hours.
Yeah.
And the expectation is they're just not doing that at all.
That fear of disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. What about you?
Fear of failure.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. I think in regards to my own personal experience, it's because my parents left Congo and they came here for a better life, I'm guessing for us and for myself. And it's the fear of making sure that what they've given up, what they sacrificed, I don't... How do I word it? It's the fear of not doing enough so that they can be happy for the decisions that they've made here. I do feel like now that they've moved back, it's like, why did you guys come here if you came here for a better life? But it's like, so I've got to make sure whatever I do or the career that I'm doing, I've got to make sure that I'm successful enough for them to be like, yeah, we've crossed off that thing of the list. We came here for a reason. Now our kids are exceeding the expectations.
Yeah.
So I think that's fear.
Massive.
That is
Chrissy.
a big one. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure for a child to have, because you are still the child in this dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's also like remembering your parents. You didn't force your parents to make a decision, right? They are adults. And I think this is the hardest thing as kids when we're grown up, right? Is to remember that we are still the child in the dynamic. They are adults who are fully responsible for the decisions that they make.
Yeah.
You weren't chirping in their ear being like, babes, can you give me a bit of childhood, please? Yeah. Like, move. You do have to allow, even if they're your parents, people to make decisions and live with the decisions that they've made, because they were independent of you. Even if they say that they did it for you, we are still selfish in nature, by the sense of like, your parents would have also moved for themselves, right? Yeah. And that's okay. That's fully allowed, of course.
Yeah.
But your fear of failing them is actually doing you a disservice, in the sense of it's not something to fear.
Yeah.
It would never have changed their decision anyway.
Yeah, when you put it,
because this is hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Like, they would have still moved. You know what I mean? You can't ever go back and change their decision to have moved. They were always going to move, regardless of what happens to you in your career. True. And actually, it just puts you in it puts you on the back foot by putting so much pressure on yourself to do something right to validate someone else's decision.
That's so true. I think that's me.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm just like, sometimes I think I'm very hard on myself. I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
It's big. It's a big one. It's
I
good
do
to
feel
cry.
like, ooh,
You got me.
tea at 4, bleeding out. No, it's a good cry. I am very hard on myself, and I do feel like I get angry at my siblings because they have it so easy, and it's like you don't know what they've done to allow us to be here.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's true. It's like I wasn't alive when they decided to come here. Like I don't know whether they thought maybe they should have stayed. Do you know what I mean? But it's always that kind of like, I feel like with every child that has a parent that's migrated, they feel like that. So it's doing.
I'm sure before they had you and they were moving there, they weren't like, when we got over there, our firstborn better exceeds. Otherwise, we're
not.
moving back.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you were a fucking bonus to the whole scenario of moving over
man.
here. You know, give yourself some credit. I'm giving her a tissue. Give yourself some credit. You've done so well.
Yeah.
So well. And your dad's obsessed with you.
I know.
Oh, that's so adorable.
That's my best
That's the
friend.
things, like if you put yourself in the same dynamic, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a child. Would you regret a decision that you made that at the time you really believed would be the best decision for myself and my family, or yourself and your family? No.
I think
And you
it's how
wouldn't want your
yeah.
child to carry that burden.
No, I think it's how like you said, how you take it in. Like, yeah. Wow, man, you guys made me cry.
It's good though.
It's a good
crying
cry
is
though,
such
yeah.
a good sign of a release. It's a
Yeah.
process because it means you're feeling your feelings, and that's a big feeling to feel.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people will relate to your story, which is amazing that you've shared it.
Yeah.
Because it means someone else doesn't feel less alone in their, you know, situation where they're also first generation, and it's a really real experience to have and a very valid experience.
Yeah.
But I think that's where you learn, like, that another word for boundaries. It's where do I end and someone else begins? Like, you aren't your parents.
Yeah.
And you can't make those decisions for them. You also can't assume that that's how they experience something.
Yeah.
And even if, you know, there might be people listening that are like, my parents 100% expect me to have this
Make me feel like that.
incredible career because of
Yeah.
what I've sacrificed. And again, I think it's remembering our parents, particularly if they've immigrated, are acting out of a survival mechanism, right?
Yeah.
It's a real difficult decision to make. So the outcome is always going to be a little bit more, they're almost going to be much more codependent. Because they might, just because they've moved different countries doesn't mean that they've necessarily come out of that survival mechanism,
Yeah.
where they're still thinking that, right, my survival depends on my kids
Yeah.
being really successful, and their survival depends on them being really successful. So it's still from a really caring place. You've just almost got to rationalize what my parents grew up in and what I'm growing up in now are two very different situations, you know? So it's just a little bit, but also grace and space to feel that discomfort because it's big.
Yeah, man.
I bet you just spoke for so many people out there. In the
Yeah,
same
1,000%.
Yeah.
Oh, that was nice. Cry, guys. It's good.
I love a good cry.
Yeah.
God, we're clapping for crying. That's all this podcast has got to. Right, good.
What was something?
Okay,
Go on,
amazing.
Lauren.
Let's go on to how our audience responded to what would you like to change about your mindset? So we had a couple of responses. Comparing things, knowing the grass isn't always greener. I wish I could just focus on me sometimes. Is this selfish? I worry about other people more than myself. I always think of the negative before the positive, that I'm constantly doing something wrong or not being good enough. I'd like to be kinder to myself and listen to the advice that I give to others and not have such high standards. Not have such high standards for myself. I feel that just set myself to such a high point that it's just life isn't enjoyable living in that constant state of, like, as I said, like survival.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to fight to
Yeah.
be the best, to be seen, to be loved, it's exhausting and it's not sustainable.
It's not. And then if you reverse that, you think, right, what am I running away from? I'm running away from feeling like I'm not good enough, that I am unsafe,
Yeah.
that I am not good enough, that I need to be perfect, that I can't be seen. Those are the things you actually need to focus on making safe versus making yourself this perfect, super confident, I always feel like I'm enough, I believe in myself 110%. Because to be honest, you're going to struggle jumping from I don't feel any of those things to I feel all those things all the time. And the only reason you're looking and chasing for that perfect version of yourself is because you're running away from the version of yourself that exists right now. And she's loud because she is present. Or they are present. And that's the version you need to actually spend time being with. Not this future imaginary self, because they'll never arrive. Like, the future moment never arrives. It's just the present after the present after the present.
True.
Getting a little bit woo-woo. So if you can reverse that and say, right, I actually need to look at the things that I am afraid of feeling, which makes me run towards that thing and make this thing safe. You no longer need certain things to happen in your external environment to feel safe. That's ultimately what you are looking for. It's like safety in every sense of the word.
Amazing. Love it.
Do you know how it says I always think of the negative before the positive? Why is it easy to think of the negative first before the positives?
Because it's survival.
That's annoying.
I know, but it's the way we're wired. We are human beings wired for survival. You are constantly, your brain is looking to keep you safe, right? And I think this is the other thing. If you're an overthinker, if you catastrophize, if you constantly berate yourself, you're actually not doing it out of hate for yourself. You're doing it out of such care for yourself because you're trying to do the things you think you need to do to be safe, or be the person you think you need to be safe. It's actually coming from a very caring place, because I think we can add a lot of shame onto those coping mechanisms you've come up with as a child. But we're wired for survival. Like, your brain would be doing you a disservice by not looking for potential threats in your environment. Like the car that's speeding down the road, or the person that feels unsafe. You can't put your finger on it, but you just get an off vibe from them. It's just learning to moderate that. Like, what's a threat and what's just uncomfortable to feel.
Interesting. Okay.
Love that. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yes. So question was, what would you like to embrace more about yourself? And the answers we got is my empathy, my body shape, how kind I am. Sometimes people are unkind to me, and it sort of holds me back. The way I look, my people skills, and being kinder to myself.
So lots of kindness.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I struggle with the most. I have a very loud inner critic. Like, there's nothing you can say to me that I've not already said to myself. And again, like, the best reframe that I ever had for that was that whole thing of like, I'm not doing this because I hate myself, even though it feels like that. I am doing it because I think I need to be a different version of myself in order to feel loved and in order to feel safe. So what I'm actually looking for is to feel safe and loved for who I am. And the only person that can really give that to myself is me. It's got to come from me first. Otherwise, I'm going to rely on someone. That's going to make me feel unsafe anyway. I'm going to constantly panic about keeping this person in my life in order to feel these certain things. Or the job. I'm going to constantly panic about losing the job. So even if you do find it or think you can find it in something else, think about the anxiety that's going to give you.
Yeah.
When you're looking for something outside of yourself. Like, you're constantly going to be codependent with it. So it's that whole thing of like, being kinder to yourself really is about accepting the very humbling fact about life that you will just never be perfect.
Yeah.
You will never, ever rid yourself of insecurity. You will never get rid of feeling uncomfy. And actually, if you can spend time just sitting with that truth and making that kind of feel like, okay, I can't run from this truth forever. I think you'd be a lot less needy in your environment.
Love that.
I just wanted to ask, because on that answer, I found it really interesting that all the people that said body shape, be kind to myself, the way I look, were women. So is there do you see any difference in men and women and how they deal with things emotionally? Do we experience the same emotions, or is it just how we're dealing with them?
I think that comes straight back down to like societal expectations, because we all are navigating life as best as we can, right? No one has the blueprint, because there isn't one. So we naturally fall into what we think we need to be and how we think we need to show up in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
So for women, that's very much how we look, how we present, how much space we take up. You know, I was saying like anger earlier is an emotion women in particular really struggle with, because generationally women were really, you're seen, you're not heard.
Yeah.
And you think about parenting styles that also develop from parenting styles, the kind of silent generation they call it. I think it's, I don't know, our grandparents were the silent generation, I think, which meant kids were seen, not heard.
Yeah.
But I think for women, ours is very much linked to the space that we take up. And that can literally also be body shape.
Yeah.
It can be the way we speak, the way we present ourselves. I think for men, it's very much, again, in the primal role, it's more about how much value do I provide to the people in my life? Am I doing enough in my career? Am I earning enough money? So it kind of does, we're humans at the end of the day. So regardless of which gender you identify with, none of us are unique in what we experience emotionally. Like, we are so basic in the sense of, I've never met a client or had a session with a client who told me something I've either not felt myself or I've not had the client before speak about, you know? So it's the human condition.
Yeah.
And I think I wish there was more conversations about A, that's present, and B, that's fucking okay.
Yeah.
It's safe.
Yeah, I've had something before about like, you are not special when you're suffering.
No.
Like you can really think you're alone in something, and we're all trying every day to be kind to ourselves, to do this and doing that. We're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So but it's just unspoken.
Yes.
It's like maybe just through these conversations we're having now,
Definitely.
people feel more comfy, as you say, to know that everyone's in the same boat.
And then imagine the difference you can make in your own life by having these conversations, because the worst thing you can do is isolate.
Yeah.
Because then you feed the evidence that you are alone in your problems, which 9 times out of 10 or all the time you are not.
Yeah.
And then you present evidence that, oh my gosh, A, I'm not alone, and B, the person that I've just shared this with says they feel the same way. And now we're having a conversation, and now I feel a little bit safer to not present so perfectly to them.
Yeah.
It's like we all have to do the work of getting really comfortable being ourselves.
Yeah, love that. And just the final one we asked our audience were, what would you like to do more of that you usually procrastinate over? Passion projects, be more creative. I love painting, etc. I just don't make it a priority. Writing, my creativeness and passion, it's used up on my job and I never get to do anything for myself. More time for creativity. Yeah, I feel that so much. I feel like I give so much of myself to work that I say in my free time, I've not got the capacity now for anything else. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, there's just excuses. If I wanted to, I can make time. But I think in a society, a day and age where we are expected to give so much of our time and our energy to work, like, yeah, how do we stop procrastinating that fact?
It's difficult. And I think I want to validate that it is really difficult. There's not just something wrong with you and the fact that you're not getting it right and you're not making enough time and everyone else is. It's something I think almost everyone struggles with because of the way that our days are set up, our work life is set up, 9 to 5, that's, I'm not going to do the math, what is it, 8 hours a day, and then you get home and you're commuting, this, that and the other. It's tough, right? It's tough being a human. And again, I think we need to give ourselves grace for that. Like, it is difficult managing work life, social life, dating, health, exercise, all of these kind of things. So first off, nothing wrong with you because you're struggling with it, right? Secondly, I think when we look at something as a chore, we're always going to procrastinate about it. Like if you're doing it because you think you should be doing it, then I think you'll always struggle.
Yeah.
I think if you can find like, what is it about that passion project? Like, what's the desire in it? Not what's the should, not how is this going to make me a better person? Like, what is the reason it fills up my own cup? And then kind of like microdosing that throughout your day or throughout your evenings, and looking at the way that you can practically embed that into your existing routine, not look at it as something extra on your to-do list.
Right.
So it's
Nice.
like, maybe it's shifting the way that you spend time with your friends. Like maybe you go to a pottery class or something, or you go and see a theatre show, or you know what I mean? It's like, I think we can get in the habit of overthinking things, and really you just have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
right? You can try and think up the perfect way of doing this, but until you try something, you'll never do it. So just don't expect yourself to get it perfectly, because you won't.
Gorgeous. Well, that was an incredible conversation.
Yeah. I just felt like I had a therapy session.
Oh,
But it's a good therapy session.
It's a release of
It's
sorts.
a whoosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable.
Yeah, agree.
That's, that's big. You're going to help a lot of people with that share.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I just wish we had more of these conversations with each other, within our friendship groups, within our relationships, with our parents, at work. You know, find micro spaces that we can bring a little bit more of that humanness into
100%.
life.
Yeah, and ironically, I know the podcast says conversations that should have stayed in the group chat, but have those group chat conversations and then say it to the masses.
Yes.
Like, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing your point of view. It's been incredibly valuable.
Oh, thank you
Loved
for having
it.
me. Loved it.
Thank you. If you guys at home also have any other thoughts, feelings about the app, please send them over to us at tea4@junglecreations.com, or you can DM us on Spotify, Instagram, all our channels. You can find them somewhere. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Woohoo. Fucking hell. Silence. Yeah, well, there's never enough. Okay. Amazing.